slack. The shipping yards are where they break you down. It's how they turn your brain into something damaged and malleable. I once worked for 3 years, not with this crane but with a similar model, doing nothing except moving shipping containers from their freighters onto the solid earth of the port. Each container weighs in excess of 5,000 pounds, and each one can hold between 1 and 3 months' salary in merchandise. Mistakes simply aren't allowed, and there's so much cargo coming in that, on busy days, a man can be up there for 12 hours before the work's all done. The guys in charge, they love it. I can see it in their smiling, greasy faces when they finally let me out of the operator's box for the night. Moving cargo is a secondary goal, even if they pretend like it's the most important thing in the world. When it really comes right down to motivations, there's no hiding that it's all about wearing me down. City work, though, is how they reprogram you once you've been scrambled by dock work. If you were to spend as much time as I have sitting at the controls of a crane, you wouldn't call me paranoid for saying so. Moving steel girders and big dumpsters full of excavated dirt is a little less precise than carefully stacking containers, so at first it seems like it might be a respite. But, as the monotony begins to seep in, you start to understand that there's an even worse hypnosis to it all. The long hours make the loneliness grow intolerable. Like water torture, it's the accumulation of a million little discomforts that drive you insane. You can't talk to anyone when you're up there, it's just a steel cage, lifted so high up that you'd get vertigo if you ever had time to look straight down and focus your eyes on the ground. Every once in a while an order gets barked through the crackling, ancient radio which is bolted into the control panel, but that's it for contact with the outside world. When you're up 50 stories in a metal box all by yourself, you become very aware that you could die of a heart attack, and no one would even notice it until somebody complained that your job wasn't getting done. This kind of fear, and isolation, is how they brainwash people in POW camps. Hell, even the Viet Cong could probably take a note. There's simply no defense against being made to labor when your mind has already begun to creak from the strain of being alone. Once, I was working on the construction of a mall in Idaho. As I arrived one morning, and saw the silhouette of the crane standing against the sky, I snapped and took a swing at the nearby foreman. While he sat in the dirt looking up at me, I told him that he couldn't treat people the way he did. It wasn't humane, I said, to lock people up there all day like that, with nothing to do except for a mind-numbing task which teases their sanity away. They sent me to a union psychiatrist, and when I told the doctor about how they torture me, he diagnosed me with paranoia brought on by work-related anxiety. He scribbled me a prescription and recommended a week's rest. No more than a week, though, he told me sternly. Operating a crane is an uncommon and highly valuable skill. They need you on that construction site. And you, he added with a parental scowl, need to get back on the horse so to speak and face your apprehensions. When I began to cry, and angrily threatened to quit, he looked at me with beatific eyes and said, "What will you do for money? Who will hire a crane operator with no other training and an obvious neurosis? How do you expect to maintain any quality of life in a different career?" I didn't have an answer. But today, I think I've got it all figured out. There's a 40-mile-per-hour wind whipping through the streets of the city, and the voice coming through the radio says it's probably going to keep up until after lunch. No heavy stuff until then, the voice says. But get that roof support panel connected up now so we don't waste any time with it when things calm down. I do as the foreman says, bringing the crane's hook block around so that workers on the ground can attach it to the 300-ton piece of prefabricated structural steel. Once they're done, the radio crackles again. "All right, you're all set. We're braking for now. Come on down. It's now or never." I jam hard on the controls, hoisting the crane's boom head up as fast as it will go. I may be up too high to hear it, but I don't initially detect any alarmed shouting as the piece rises into the air. The crane, though, groans throughout its whole structure with the weight of the cargo. The massive section of roof support paneling is moving towards me, laboriously, but soon it's up higher than any of the surrounding shops and buildings. Now the wind's pulling at it. I can feel the hoist line tautening out of my control. Yes, the gargantuan piece of steel is a hazard now, just like I intended. I can hear the radio in front of me activate, the voice coming from inside it is hysterical with anger, and with panic. A section like this will cause catastrophic damage if it falls, the foreman on the ground is telling me. Now, I really can hear the screaming. Its fervor carries it up, past the whipping wind and up the stories and stories to where I sit. The crane's main boom pendant, a steel cable about 3 inches thick in diameter, snaps with a sound like an enormous violin string breaking. The structural steel lattice of the crane's body is failing here and there as well, the welds which hold it together are shearing apart to relieve the strain on them. The cargo is beginning to fall. My operator's box, hundreds of feet up in the air, is falling too. It's being ripped towards the ground by the weight of the piece, which is still half twisting in the wind as it dangles ever more insistently downwards. My prison is collapsing. I've escaped. The sound of the panel smashing back into the earth is cacophonous. In my last moments before I join it in a concussive, life-ending impact with the earth, I wonder if anyone else has been hurt. Someone almost certainly has, I realize with a pang of remorse. The screaming which I can hear all around and below me, growing louder as I approach the ground, is no longer anticipatory. Now, the people on the ground are making the kind of horrified sounds that people make when they've seen something awful and irreversible happen. Still, this is all for the best. If I had offed myself at home, they might have made someone else work the crane today.